In a world where power often hides behind darkness and injustice tries to silence the brave, one man showed the world that no threat, no pain, no act of cruelty could make him back down. This is the story of how Ibrahim Traoré, the young leader of Burkina Faso, faced one of the most personal and cruel attacks against him, and how he made those responsible pay dearly. It all began as Traoré's bold reforms and defiance of Western control started shaking the foundations of foreign interests in his country. His nationalization of resources, his stand for sovereignty, and his refusal to bow to foreign powers made him a dangerous figure in the eyes of those who profited from his country's weakness. They couldn't stop him through propaganda. They couldn't stop him through bribes. They couldn't even stop him through covert threats. So they turned to something darker, his family. One morning, news reached Traoré's inner circle that his younger sister Mariam, a bright and beloved young woman who lived quietly in Ouagadougou, had been kidnapped. She was taken from her home late at night by masked men who left behind only a chilling message: "Stop fighting, or she pays the price." For a moment, the entire capital fell silent. His critics assumed this would break him. His enemies believed he would give in, that he would halt his campaign of sovereignty and kneel to their demands. His supporters feared that even someone as strong as Traoré would have no choice, but they underestimated him. Traoré didn't panic. He didn't flinch. Behind closed doors, he told his team, "They have made their biggest mistake. They believe my love for my family is a weakness, but it is my strength. And now they will see what happens when you hurt the people I love." Instead of backing down, Traoré doubled his efforts publicly, announcing sweeping measures against foreign control of Burkina Faso's gold and uranium. At the same time, he quietly activated his most loyal and trusted security forces, instructing them to find his sister at any cost. For days, intelligence poured in. His enemies moved her from one hideout to another, thinking they could stay ahead of him. But what they didn't know was that Traoré had spent months building an underground intelligence network loyal only to him. Every phone call, every movement, every deal they made was tracked. On the fifth day, just before dawn, Traoré's special forces stormed a remote compound on the outskirts of the city. The kidnappers were caught completely off guard. Mariam was found, shaken but unharmed, and immediately brought to safety. But that was not the end. Traoré personally ordered the arrest of every single man involved, and not just those on the ground. Within hours, names of high-level conspirators, both domestic collaborators and foreign operatives, were revealed. Some fled the country. Others were apprehended and paraded before the nation. Then came his televised address. Standing firm, with his sister safe beside him, he spoke to the nation and to the world. They thought hurting my family would silence me. They thought fear would stop this revolution. But every attack only makes me stronger. Let this be a lesson. Burkina Faso will never kneel, and anyone who dares to harm our people, no matter how powerful, will pay for it. Every time, without fail. That speech electrified the people. Crowds filled the streets, chanting his name, waving the national flag, and demanding justice against the conspirators. In the days that followed, Traoré pushed forward even harder, expelling certain foreign envoys, seizing foreign-owned mines, and increasing military presence in vulnerable regions. His enemy's plan had not only failed, it backfired spectacularly, making him more popular and more determined than ever before. The message was clear. No threat, no intimidation, no personal attack could silence him. This is how Ibrahim Traoré turned his pain into power. How he showed the world that Burkina Faso's fight for freedom was bigger than one man, bigger than one family, and that no one would ever make them bow again. Asterisk, and to this day, the people remember that moment. They tell their children, when they tried to break him, he stood taller. When they tried to silence him, he roared louder. When they took his sister, he made them pay. Asterisk, because in the heart of Africa, a revolution was born, and nothing would stop it now. Asterisk, not long after the failed kidnapping of his sister, another sinister plot unfolded, one that once again tested Ibrahim Traoré's resolve and exposed just how far his enemies were willing to go to break him. Asterisk, this time. It wasn't just his family they targeted, it was his people's trust. Asterisk. Weeks after his sweeping reforms began shaking the power of foreign corporations and their local allies, mysterious violence erupted in a quiet village in northern Burkina Faso. Armed men, claiming to be under Traoré's orders, raided the village, burned homes, and took innocent villagers hostage. Videos of the attack surfaced on social media almost instantly, showing the attackers wearing army uniforms, shouting Traoré's name, and flying the national flag. Asterisk, international media pounced on the footage, accusing Traoré of brutal repression. Western officials condemned him publicly, calling for sanctions and demanding investigations. Asterisk, for the first time, Traoré faced widespread doubt even among his own people. Was this really the man they had trusted? Had he turned against his own citizens in the name of power? Asterisk, but behind the scenes, Traoré knew something was wrong. His intelligence sources quickly confirmed that none of his official forces had been deployed to that region at the time. The so-called soldiers in the video were mercenaries, hired and disguised to carry out a false flag operation. Asterisk, it was a dirty trick, meant to erode his legitimacy and paint him as a tyrant in the eyes of the world. Asterisk, rather than issuing angry denials, Traoré did what he does best. He acted. Asterisk, he ordered a covert operation to track the mercenaries responsible. Over the next few days, his intelligence agents intercepted communications between a foreign-backed warlord and an influential business figure in Ouagadougou. Money had changed hands. Orders had been given. Evidence was piling up. Asterisk, then came his next move, unannounced and surgical. Traoré's special forces raided a compound on the outskirts of the capital, arresting the business figure and recovering documents, cash, and weapons caches. At the same time, his men struck the mercenary camp in the north, freeing the hostages and capturing the ringleaders alive. Asterisk, and once again, he took to the airwaves, this time holding up the evidence for all to see. Asterisk, they tried to turn my people against me, he said. They thought lies and blood would stop our march to freedom. But the truth cannot be hidden, and every crime against our people will be answered by me and by all of us. Asterisk, the revelation shocked the nation and the world. Even his critics were forced to admit the evidence was irrefutable. Far from a tyrant, Traoré had exposed a web of sabotage and deceit aimed at destabilizing his government. Asterisk, the would-be saboteurs were put on trial, their confessions broadcast for all to see. And as the truth spread, so did the resolve of his people. Asterisk, crowds once again poured into the streets, this time chanting a new slogan: "We are not fooled. We stand with Traoré." Asterisk, for his enemies, it was another humiliating defeat. Their scheme had not only failed, it had strengthened the very man they sought to destroy. Asterisk, and for Traoré, it was another lesson that the path to sovereignty would be long and treacherous, but that no lie, no trick, no betrayal could undo the bond between him and his people. As he stood before his supporters days later, he reminded them, they will keep trying. But every attack only sharpens our will. Every lie only reveals the truth. Every wound only makes us stronger. We will not stop. We will not kneel. This is our land, and we will defend it, together. Asterisk, and once again, he proved that no enemy, no matter how powerful, could break the spirit of a people united in their fight for freedom. Asterisk. The world thought they had seen the limits of Ibrahim Traoré's courage. But then came the story that showed just how far he was willing to go to protect not just his country, but his continent. Asterisk. Months after crushing the false flag mercenary plot, Traoré began warning African leaders in private about a secret plan he had uncovered. Intelligence reports suggested that a massive shipment of illegal weapons was being smuggled into West Africa through a coastal port, destined to arm rebel groups and terrorists in multiple countries. Asterisk. The goal was clear: destabilize the Sahel, spread chaos, and weaken the sovereignty movement spreading across the region. Asterisk. But when Traoré brought his evidence to international authorities, they dismissed it. When he called out the names of those funding the operation, foreign embassies denied everything and accused him of paranoia. Asterisk. Most leaders would have stopped there. After all, it wasn't strictly his fight. The weapons weren't even heading to Burkina Faso directly. Asterisk. But Traoré saw the bigger picture. He knew that if his neighbors fell, Burkina Faso would be next, so he decided to act. Through his intelligence network, he tracked the shipment to a heavily guarded port in a neighboring country. His advisors urged caution, warning of international outrage and possible war. But Traoré was unmoved. Asterisk. If we let this shipment through, thousands will die, millions will suffer, and we will all remain slaves to those who profit from our blood. We have no choice but to stop it. If no one else will act, we will. Asterisk. In the dead of night, Traoré personally oversaw a daring joint operation of Burkina Special Forces and loyal local allies. Disguised and moving fast, they infiltrated the port, disabled the guards, and boarded the cargo vessel. Asterisk. What they found inside stunned even the most seasoned soldiers. Crates upon crates of assault rifles, machine guns, explosives, drones enough to fuel a dozen rebellions. Asterisk. The ship's crew was arrested and interrogated on the spot. The flags and papers of a foreign shipping company were exposed as nothing more than a cover. Asterisk. By sunrise, Traoré stood on the dock surrounded by the confiscated weapons, cameras rolling as he delivered his message to the continent. Asterisk. These weapons were meant to kill Africans, to burn our homes, to keep us divided and weak. But today, we say no more. Africa will no longer be a dumping ground for their wars. We will expose every lie, stop every bullet, and break every chain until our continent is free. Asterisk. The footage went viral. Across Africa, people cheered his defiance and courage. In the streets of Ouagadougou, crowds gathered again, chanting, "Africa for Africans!" Asterisk. His enemies were furious. Western governments issued statements of concern and regret, claiming he had violated international law. But the people didn't care. Other African leaders began quietly reaching out, asking for his help in cleaning up similar networks in their own countries. Asterisk. What his enemies intended to be a quiet, secret operation had been exposed for the world to see. And once again, Traoré showed that no threat, no enemy, no power on earth could make him abandon his mission to defend his people. Asterisk. As one elder in Ouagadougou put it that day, asterisk, he doesn't just fight for us. He fights for all of Africa. And for that, we will stand with him no matter the cost. Asterisk. It was a moment that marked a turning point, not just for Burkina Faso, but for a whole continent awakening to its power. And it proved yet again that Ibrahim Traoré was a leader who would never back down. Asterisk. Not long after the port raid that shook the region, another storm was brewing, one even more audacious and dangerous. This time, his enemies didn't aim to hurt his family, nor to undermine his legitimacy through lies or weapons. This time, They came for him. It was a quiet evening when the news broke. An assassination attempt on Ibrahim Traoré. The plot began with a trusted officer in his own security detail. Recruited and bribed by foreign agents, the officer had been planting information for weeks, convincing Traoré that a tribal chief in the east was plotting against him. The officer insisted Traoré make a surprise visit to confront the alleged traitor away from the capital, with only a small protective team, but this visit was a trap. The convoy was ambushed halfway through the journey, an explosive device ripped through the lead vehicle, and gunmen opened fire from the hills. For several minutes, chaos reigned as bullets flew and smoke filled the air. But what his attackers hadn't counted on was Traoré himself. Instead of cowering, Traoré took command of the situation. He leapt from his vehicle, grabbed a rifle from one of his stunned guards, and began directing return fire. His calm under pressure rallied his men, who regrouped and fought back fiercely, pushing the attackers into retreat. When the dust settled, several of the ambushers lay dead, and a few had been captured alive. The wounded were tended to, and Traoré, despite minor injuries to his shoulder, refused evacuation. We finish this now, he told his men. The captured attackers revealed everything under questioning. The entire ambush had been planned from a foreign embassy in a neighboring country. The bribes, the fake intelligence about the tribal chief, even the explosives, all traced back to the same powerful interests that had tried and failed to break him before. But this time, Traoré decided to strike back not just militarily, but diplomatically. He called an emergency meeting of the West African regional bloc and laid out the evidence in front of the entire assembly. With names, dates, payments, and intercepted communications, he exposed the foreign meddling for all to see. If they can come for me, they can come for any of you, he told the leader sternly. They will stop at nothing to keep us weak. But I will not fall, and neither should you. His words ignited something in the room. For the first time in decades, the bloc issued a unanimous statement condemning foreign interference and pledging collective defense against external sabotage. Traoré or acute returned home to a hero's welcome. Crowds lined the streets to greet him as he arrived back in Ouagadougou. Children waved flags, women wept with pride, and chants of "unbreakable," "unstoppable," rang out through the night. In a televised address later that evening, he looked straight into the camera and said, "They tried to kill me because they cannot kill the idea I represent. But let them know, even if they succeed one day in taking my life, the fire I have lit in the hearts of my people will never die. We will keep fighting for dignity, for sovereignty, for Africa." And with that, he showed once again that no bullet, no ambush, no plot could break his spirit. Instead, every attack only fueled the movement he had come to embody, a movement that was no longer just about him, but about millions of Africans rising up and saying, "Enough." It was clear to all now. Ibrahim Traoré was more than just a leader. He was a symbol of resistance. A man who would face down any threat, any enemy, and make them pay for underestimating him. After surviving the assassination attempt, many believed Traoré would slow down, that he would grow more cautious, less confrontational. But those who thought so didn't understand the man they were dealing with. Because what came next was, perhaps his boldest move yet. A daring confrontation with one of Africa's most entrenched and powerful foreign military bases. For decades. In the north of Burkina Faso, a sprawling foreign base had sat on Burkinab soil, officially described as a training center for counterterrorism. But everyone knew the truth. It was a hub of surveillance, exploitation, and control. For years, it had been untouchable. Previous governments allowed it to operate without question. Its presence was justified as support, but it served foreign interests more than Birkenab ones. And as Traoré fought to free his country from dependency, the base became a glaring symbol of everything he stood against. So he decided to confront it head on. It began with a simple demand that the foreign forces occupying the base provide a full, transparent accounting of their operations, equipment, and objectives. When they refused, citing security protocols, Traoré gave them a deadline: leave Burkina Faso in 30 days or face forcible removal. The announcement stunned the world. Western capitals denounced the order, calling it reckless and dangerous. International media painted him as an erratic leader jeopardizing regional security. Even some of his own ministers worried about retaliation. But Traoré remained firm. No foreign army will ever defend our people better than we can ourselves, he declared. Their time here is over. As the deadline approached, tensions escalated. Columns of armored vehicles began moving around the base. Helicopters circled low over nearby villages. Rumors spread of a planned standoff or even an armed clash. On the final day, Traoré personally traveled to the base with a convoy of Birkenab troops. Standing at the gate, facing foreign commanders, he delivered his message face to face. You are guests who have overstayed their welcome. This is Burkina Faso. This is Africa. And we decide who stays and who goes. You have 1 hour to begin your withdrawal. My men are ready. For a tense moment, no one moved. Then, one by one, the foreign vehicles began to pull out. Soldiers boarded. Trucks. Helicopters lifted off. By the end of the day, the base was abandoned, its gates sealed, its flag replaced by the Birkenab colors. Crowds gathered outside, cheering and singing national songs. Across the country, spontaneous celebrations broke out with chants of Burkina Faso is free and Traoré is our voice. Echoing through city streets and village squares, that night, in a televised address, Traoré spoke not just to his own people, but to the whole continent. For too long, they have told us we cannot defend ourselves, that we need them, that we are weak. But today we have shown the world that Africa is not weak. Africa is not afraid. And we will no longer be told what we can and cannot do. From this day forward, we decide. His boldness inspired leaders and activists far beyond Burkina Faso's borders. In Mali, in Niger, in Guinea, people took to the streets, waving Birkenab flags alongside their own, calling for the removal of foreign forces from their lands. 2. And in Ouagadougou, an elderly man summed up the mood of the nation when he told a reporter, we thought he was just fighting for us. Now we see he is fighting for all of Africa. May God protect him, because he is carrying the weight of a continent on his shoulders. With every bold step, Traoré proved that no foreign power, no old order, no threat of force could intimidate him. And with every victory, he reminded the world that the time of African submission was over and a new era of sovereignty had begun. After the historic expulsion of foreign troops from the northern base, Ibrahim Traoré's popularity soared across Burkina Faso and the region. But his enemies, humiliated and furious, began plotting a more sophisticated and dangerous form of retaliation: economic strangulation. For years, Burkina Faso's economy had been tied to the whims of powerful foreign corporations and their allies in global finance. After Traoré's nationalization of resources and his refusal to bow to Western interests, these corporations began quietly pulling out their investments. Loans were suspended. Sanctions were threatened. Trade deals were canceled overnight. Within weeks, fuel shipments slowed to a trickle. Food prices rose. Spare parts for machines and vehicles became scarce. A whisper campaign began, spreading doubt among the people. He is brave, yes, but his bravery is costing us everything. Can we survive like this? It was the classic playbook. Make life hard for the people so they turn on their leader. But once again, Traoré refused to break. Instead of begging for the sanctions to be lifted, he turned to his people with a bold and unexpected plan. A full-scale campaign of self-reliance. He called an emergency assembly of engineers, farmers, craftsmen, traders, and young innovators from across the country. For 2 days, he listened to their ideas and challenges. Then, standing before them all, he made his vision clear. If they block our fuel, we will make our own. If they block our food, we will grow our own. If they block our trade, we will build new markets. We are not slaves to anyone's economy. Our strength is in our own hands. What followed was nothing short of revolutionary. Traoré's government launched massive investments in local agriculture, providing seeds, tools, and training to villages across the nation. Urban gardens sprang up in every city, producing vegetables and fruits even in tight spaces. Cooperatives were formed to produce cooking oil, soap, textiles, and other essentials. Young engineers developed makeshift biofuel from local crops to keep vehicles running. Small workshops began repairing and fabricating machine parts that used to be imported. Teachers and students volunteered to teach literacy and trade skills in rural areas to boost productivity. Within months, the country was not only surviving, it was adapting. The people's pride in their own resilience began to eclipse the hardship. Slogans appeared on walls and banners, "Made in Burkina," and "We don't beg, we build." Traoré's enemies, watching from abroad, were stunned. They had expected protests in the streets. Instead, they saw farmers harvesting more than ever. They heard markets buzzing with activity. And they saw a population more united than before. On the first anniversary of the sanctions, Traoré addressed his people from a field where farmers and engineers were showing off new machinery they had built themselves. When they tried to starve us, we learned to feed ourselves. When they tried to break us, we became unbreakable. And when they tried to make us kneel, we stood taller than ever. This is the spirit of Burkina Faso. This is the spirit of Africa, and no one can take it from us. His speech was broadcast far and wide, reaching neighboring nations who were facing similar pressures. Inspired, activists and farmers and other African countries began forming their own self-reliance movements, calling it the Burkina Way. In Ouagadougou that night, a grandmother selling fruit in the market summed it up best as she handed a customer a basket of produce grown in her own yard. They thought we could not live without them, she said, smiling. But look at us now. We live, and we live free, thanks to him. It became yet another chapter in the remarkable story of Ibrahim Traoré, the leader who turned hardship into hope, and who showed his people and his continent that freedom isn't given. It's grown. It's built. And it can never be sanctioned away.